What's up everyone, it's the Marshal Commander back with another Star Wars video, and today we're going to be ranking the top 5 clone units, mainly cores. But before we begin, I'd like to apologize for my absence. 7 months since my last upload. I've just been so busy and that leaves me too tired to work on videos when I'm home. But I think life is starting to settle down a little more, so I should be back for good. Hopefully. Also, most of you don't know this, but I recently got a PC for gaming. So I'm looking to do some things like start an Arma 3 clone unit, maybe play some of that Galactic Contention and other Star Wars stuff. So if anyone would like to help with that, become a friend and join my units, I'm looking for members. Now, let's hop into the video. Number 5. Starting off this list at number 5, we have none other than the 7th Sky Corps, led by Jedi High General Obi-Wan Kenobi and Marshal Commander Cody, CC-2224. Now, the 7th Sky Corps has the most showings out of every clone unit other than maybe the 501st Legion, so they were kind of guaranteed to get on this list by default. But even with all their showings, they're not the top dogs of the Grand Army, and that's why they're so low. I'd say the 7th was one of the most strategic units in the Republic, but it also made some of the biggest mistakes. Obi-Wan and Cody had an amazing partnership, but it was nothing when compared to duos like Anakin and Rex or Sakura and Bly. Some of their best showings were during battles such as Ryloth, when they successfully liberated the Twi'leks, Christophsis when they were able to force the Separatists to leave the planet and defeated Admiral Trench, Bomi's Corey 4 where they completely wiped out the CIS forces, and General Oro Dacian, though that's mainly all props to their naval fleet. And last but not least, Utapau, where they were the ones that successfully took out General Grievous after the Long War. The reason they placed so low is because with many of these battles, the 7th Sky Corps came out victorious but still failed at completing many of their objectives and took high casualties in doing so. Cato, Nemodia, Seleucami, and the Second Battle of Geonosis are all proof of this. Many of their battles were like this. Number 4. Unfortunately for many Clone Wars fans, at number 4 we have the 501st Legion. And I say unfortunately because I can already tell someone's mad they're so low on this list. But let me explain. Now the 501st isn't a corps, that's true, but whatever corps they belong to is definitely up here. All I know is they belong to the 3rd Sector Army, which the 7th Sky Corps also belongs to. The 501st is led by Jedi General Anakin Skywalker and CT-7567 Clone Captain, now Commander Rex, which is probably the best clone and Jedi duo. There's no denying that, very few can compete. The Chosen One and his trusty captain. There was no way the 501st wasn't making it on a best units list. But in my honest opinion, even with two powerhouses like Anakin and Rex, people only say they're the best because we see them the most. And that just doesn't cut it for me. We see them go through many tough battles like Geonosis, Umbara, Mimban, and Hissin. All battles that I truly believe are their shortcomings. Unlike the 7th though, I truly believe the 501st had far more ups than downs. Great leadership, great troops, skill and strategy, never wavering. They had all the qualities an amazing unit would need, and even with those battles where they weren't the best, they had battles that other units couldn't even imagine surviving. Christophsis, the Second Battle of Geonosis, Camino, the Second Battle of Felucia, the Battle of Anaxes, Yerbana, and of course Coruscant and Mandalore. They had the most good showings in the Clone Wars, but they also had the most bad because of that. They could debatably be anywhere on this list, but for me, a few other clone units are just better. Number 3. Now we have the 327th Star Corps, my second favorite unit within the Grand Army, led by none other than Jedi General Aayla Secura and the legendary Marshal Commander Bly, designated CC-5052. Now there's no denying the 327th had the worst of the war. They were pretty much the suicide squad of the Grand Army. Almost every Sector 12 unit could be put on this list from that fact alone, as this was probably the worst sector to be fighting in since most of the planets they fought on were already occupied and held tightly by the Confederacy of Independent Systems. More often than not, units of the 12th sector were outnumbered and outgunned in every single way. The 327th was the main unit though, and they really did get the blunt end of the stick in every battle, but they still pushed through and showed some of the best skill in the Grand Army. The Battle of Iskander, Felucia, Maradun, New Halstis, Hanogar, and Christophsis. Of course, like many units, some of the 327th was most likely on planets such as Geonosis at one point or another as well at the beginning of the war. The only real battle or battles I can think of where they faced defeat was the space battle over Quell, but that led into the defense of Maradun where they were successful, so I don't know if that's really a defeat. And they did struggle on Hanagar too, but came out alright, and Bly even had his best feat at that time, which is one of my favorite feats in all of Star Wars canon and Legends, where he was able to shoot Quinlan Vos while he attacked Aayla Secura. Overall, I can't think of anything horrible for the 327th. They were one of the best, and there's no denying that. Number 2. Next up, we have the 91st Mobile Reconnaissance Corps. It had many leaders, but the main ones were Jedi High General Mace Windu and Marshal Commander Neo, designated CC-8826. There was also Jedi General Adigalia and Stas Ali. At one point before his death, Commander Pons, designated CC-6454, was also Mace Windu's second in command. But with so many leaders, they also had so many styles. So we're going to talk about the style that I think made them the second best. That being their absolute ruthlessness and lack of care for life under Marshal Commander Neo. Under Commander Pons, they were a little more passionate, and I don't think they would have been in the top 2, but I do think they could have still made top 5. So what made this style the best for them? Mace Windu, though passionate about his troops, was a mission-first type of man, and Marshal Commander Neo was no different, except he wasn't passionate. He expected the utter best from his troops, and he didn't care how he got it, even if it meant they weren't returning from the battle. Two cold and emotionless leaders led to a highly effective kill or be killed unit. But at the end of the day, even though that sounds brutal, it made sense. Like the 327th, the 91st went to some of the most dangerous battles the war had to offer. Unlike the 327th though, they were always the first ones in. After all, it was their job. Go in blind and get information so other units knew what they were up against. Some of the most skilled, daring, and ruthless clones. No way they'd go any lower on this list. Seleucami, Ryloth, and Malastare were their best showings during the Clone Wars. But their showings didn't end there. After the Clone Wars, they were sent to Ryun, showing their ruthlessness wasn't just for the droids. It was for any enemies. But don't let the ruthlessness fool you. They seem to get dogged on in every space battle. Boba Fett sabotaged their Venator and took a bunch of them out. Then of course when Grievous boarded their cruiser and took Adigalia, though to be fair they put up a better fight than even the 501st did against Grievous in my honest opinion. Can't knock them on that. Now before we get to number 1, I do want to do a quick honorable mention. And this shouldn't count, but I'm gonna count it anyways. Remember how at the beginning of this video I told you all about the clone unit I created and how you should join? Yeah, well, I'm putting them on this list too. The 20th Assault and Security Corps, led by Jedi High General Nakovan Rain, Jedi General Dira Kande, and CC 2020 Marshal Commander Frost. The 20th was one of the largest units within the Grand Army, tasked not only with being the first ones in, but the last ones out too. The 20th's operations involved being the initial assault, the first ones in to fight the Separatists, so other units could arrive later. And then holding security to deter or defeat any forces who would attempt to occupy a Republic-controlled planet once again. Not to brag or anything, but I'd say they're pretty much the best of the best, so make sure you join. Now back to the final spot on this list. Number 1. At number 1, if you've been with my channel for a while, you already know who it is. It's the 21st Nova Corps, also known as the Galactic Marines. Led by Jedi High General Ki-Adi-Mundi and Marshal Commander CC-1138 Bakara, I could go on about how great the 21st is every single time I talk about them, but that'd make my videos too long. More skilled than the 91st, but just as ruthless. Sent on missions just as dangerous as the 327th, but even more effective. More strategic than the 7th, more capable than the 501st. There's really no debate that these guys will always come in first place. Bakara expected the best of his men, even more so than Neo did, and he showed this when he transferred anyone who didn't meet his expectations. Ki-Adi-Mundi was combat effective and kept up with them very well. They were ruthless but strategic, not just throwing bodies away. They were brave but skilled, able to rush into battle and walk out. There really isn't any missing with the 21st Nova Corps, and I will always believe they are the best the Grand Army has to offer. Even better than most special units, which I don't say lightly, but some of their battles show it. Megiddo, which is widely considered the toughest battle during the Clone Wars, Ordo Plutonia and Renvar are other notable campaigns. Then of course the Battle of New Bornelix, my favorite battle in all of the Clone Wars, when the Galactic Marines went hand to hand with droids, not even just B1s but B2s too, and they came out victorious in the end. There is quite literally no beating these guys, no arguments to be made. From their showings in Republic Commando 000, Republic Commando True Colors, Imperial Commando 501st, and of course Revenge of the Sith, I can't think of any reason these guys wouldn't be considered the best on everyone's list. Anyways, that's all for the video. I hope you all enjoyed and learned something new. If you did, make sure you subscribe and like. Maybe leave a comment too to help me out. Join the Grand Army. If anyone is interested in joining some Clone Wars stuff, please feel free to contact me, whether that be in the comments on Instagram or on Twitter. All of my socials are the Marshal Commander. I hope to see you all in the next one, and I promise I'll keep posting. Vore on.
Looks like we got ourselves a batch of shinies, Commander. It's shiny and new, just like you.
I have to admit that without the clones, it would not have been a victory.